Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? Today, we are unpacking a seriously fascinating treatise by Ian R. Graham. It's basically a massive blueprint for completely redesigning how we govern ourselves. The big idea? Replacing our current representative government with something called Direct Democracy and Sortition Assemblies, or DD&SA for short. It's a pretty bold architectural vision specifically for the British Isles, and honestly, it challenges literally everything we think we know about how power should work.
Now, you might be wondering, what if elections are actually the reason our political system feels so broken? It's a provocative thought, right? We are constantly told that to fix the system, we just need to elect better people. But Graham's framework throws a wrench in that. It argues that modern representative government isn't failing because we keep electing bad people, it's failing because of a fundamentally flawed structural architecture. We always blame the politicians, but this treatise suggests we really need to be blaming the incentives the system itself creates. So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the history of the lot. Second, structure over people. Third, the 3 design principles. Fourth, stopping corruption. And finally, power to the residents. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the history of the lot, or the historical democratic secret. Now, to really get this, we have to treat it like a historical study. Using a lottery to select leaders, historically known as sortition, is not some radical pie-in-the-sky utopian experiment. Actually, way back in 508 BCE, it was the absolute bedrock of classical Athens. And jump forward to the 14th century, Renaissance powerhouses like Venice and Florence used sortition specifically to stop elite families from capturing the state. They realized pretty early on that if you let people campaign for power, the richest and most connected folks are going to win every single time. So random selection was their clever engineering solution to keep power completely dispersed. It's a really stark contrast when you look at it. The political scientist Bernard Mainin pointed out that elections were historically designed to be aristocratic. Literally, they were meant to select a distinct elite who were supposedly better than everyone else. But random selection by lot? That was considered the only truly democratic method. Why? Because it gave every single resident an equal mathematical chance of participating, totally blind to their wealth, who they knew, or how well they could deliver a slick speech.
Moving right along to Section 2, structure over people, or the architecture of failure. So, why bring this ancient mechanism back to the British Isles today? Why not just, pass stricter anti-corruption laws? Well, it all comes down to human nature. As James Madison famously put it, men are not angels. The core thesis of the DD&SA framework is that our constant political failures, the endless scandals, the detachment, that nagging feeling that politicians just don't listen, these aren't just the moral failings of individual politicians. They are the highly predictable outcomes of an incentive structure that is just pointing in the completely wrong direction. Think of it like an architectural failure. Here's how it happens step by step. Step 1, authority gets concentrated into the hands of a few. Step 2, access to those specific decision-makers becomes asymmetric, meaning wealthy, organized interests can just buy their way in. And step 3, because politicians naturally want to keep their jobs, that power becomes deeply entrenched. Ultimately, you get elite capture, regardless of who is actually sitting in the office. The system naturally selects for political survival, not public service. Which brings us to Section 3, the 3 design principles: dispersal, temporality, and interruption. To fix this broken architecture, the DD&SA framework totally replaces elections with 3 really elegant engineering principles. And this is absolutely crucial for anyone living in the British Isles to understand, because it shows how future governance could actually work. The first principle is dispersal. This ensures that authority is spread out so widely through random selection that there literally is no permanent governing class. Picture tens of thousands of ordinary residents rotating through local, regional, and national assemblies. You simply can't target a political establishment if that establishment doesn't even exist. The power just constantly shifts among the population. The second principle is temporality. This means assembly members serve short, strictly non-renewable terms. And after that, they have to go right back to their communities, back to their old jobs, back to their old neighborhoods. This creates a powerful, direct material interest in making good decisions because they have to go back and live under the very laws they just helped pass. It completely eliminates the concept of a lifelong political career. And the third principle is interruption. This guarantees that accountability isn't just something we save up for an election every 4 or 5 years when there's a massive crisis. The capacity to revoke or override a bad decision is built right into the routine architecture of the assembly tiers. So if a local assembly makes a genuinely disastrous call, the system has independent mechanisms ready to interrupt and correct it, right then and there, without needing the permission of the people who made the mistake in the first place.
Okay, let's look at Section 4, Stopping Corruption, or Preventing Capture by Design.
We all know corruption is the massive elephant in the room when it comes to modern politics. But look at how practically these 3 principles neutralize it. You can't sustainably lobby or bribe decision makers if you have no idea who they are until their name is literally drawn from a hat. And you definitely can't promise a politician some cushy $1 million consulting gig after they leave office, the classic revolving door, if their power is strictly temporary and randomly assigned. The treatise specifically calls this out as the 3-month futility of targeted bribery. Try to think about it from the perspective of a corrupt corporation. They simply don't have the time to track down a randomly selected citizen, build a corrupt relationship, and execute a bribe before that assembly member's brief 3-month term is up and they rotate out. The return on investment for corrupt actors drops to near absolute zero. On top of that, by making sure local residents of the British Isles are the ones writing the rules for their own communities, the system leans heavily on what Graham calls the proximity principle. It sounds fancy and epistemological, but it's really just common sense. You are not going to misallocate funds to some pointless pet project if you personally have to drive on the unfixed, pothole-ridden roads in your own neighborhood the very next day. The decision makers are actually exposed to the consequences of their decisions. Finally, Section 5, Power to the Residents, and the concept of astute sovereignty. Now, you're probably asking the big question. Are everyday people off the street actually capable of governing a complex modern society? Don't we need professional experts for that? Well, the framework relies on a concept called astute sovereignty, and it's backed up by some solid hard evidence. Recent citizens' assemblies, like the ones in Ireland dealing with heavy constitutional issues, or in France tackling climate change, have proven that everyday people deliberate incredibly well. In fact, when they're properly supported, they often make much more rational, long-term choices than career politicians do. Because, and this is key, it isn't just about throwing random people into a room and hoping for the best. That would just be mob rule. It's a highly structured system with strict information guardrails. For example, there's the adversarial briefing system, which ensures assemblies always hear from a minimum of 3 competing expert sources. This means no single technocrat or slick lobbyist can come in and capture the narrative. The experts are there to advise, but the everyday residents are the ones who decide. As Ian R. Graham, the architect behind the DD&SA corpus, so beautifully puts it, we do not turn back time, we move forward with the wisdom its patterns reveal. This entire framework isn't about going backwards. It's about learning from thousands of years of human governance to build a true engineering solution, a system that finally aligns authority directly with the actual interests of the public. Which leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on as we wrap up. If our endless political frustrations, the corruption, and that deep feeling of detachment are truly the result of flawed structural engineering rather than just the wrong people winning elections, isn't it time we looked at a new blueprint? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this sparked some new ideas for you.